Good morning. Hi, I'm Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes, and we're loving my veteran this morning. How is everyone? I'm going to have a couple sips of coffee as we go through this before we get too started. Good morning, honey. Sorry. I left the door open, so he has to hear me talk twice. Sad. We're going to, in our month long of building a loving, lasting, healthy relationship, we're going to talk about toxic relationships part 2 because there's a lot that we do that are toxic, and they become toxic to us, and therefore when they're toxic to us, they are toxic to them as well. And so we really need to get into that and talk about that whole toxic relationship. Good morning, Sunny. Morning, Elisa. It is toxic. It is just a totally toxic situation, and we have to be able to come out of that toxic situation. Before we get too started, I know I've shared it again to the Facebook page. I'll share it again to the group. The VA letters, we need them as soon as possible to get them to the research team. It is called Project Your Voice. You can go to projectyourvoice.org, and we'll be able to give you updates as well. But we want to know good or bad experiences with the VA. We need all of them we can get. We have that national platform. It is your chance for your voice. So don't complain that you're having issues with the VA if you're not willing to share the information. Your name and all will be kept off of it so it remains confidential. So we just wanted to spit that out there and share that with y'all this morning. Also, it is Nakia's birthday, so y'all want to give her a little happy birthday shout. It would be great. I'm sure she would love it. So, we're talking about toxic relationships. Lack of trust and communication is incredibly toxic in a relationship. And it is so easy for us to lose that feeling. It is that lack of trust, that lack of communication. I think that's probably the number one thing that I see is people talk about, I don't trust them, we don't know how to communicate, this is going on, that's going on, where does that trust go? So we tend to say that it's on them. But again, when we're talking about building healthy, loving, happy relationships, we have to build them from within. We have to start in our bubble. And y'all are gonna be tired of hearing me say our bubble, our bubble, our bubble. But we have to start building them in our bubble. So lack of trust and lack of communication. We have to be able to trust ourselves. Okay? That is important that we learn to trust ourselves. You can't second guess everything that you do. You cannot second guess everything that you do. You have to trust yourself and trust your instincts. So lack of trust is a big deal. And I know that it sounds strange. I'm sorry, I have to keep looking at these notes because they're all on here. We tend to not trust ourselves. It tends to create a much bigger problem when we don't trust ourselves. And what that turns into is a case of, whether you want to admit it or not, it turns into a case of white lies. So if you say anywhere in your bubble, right, and you've got this out here, and you set those boundaries, and a lot of times those boundaries are held close in the beginning and you have to work them out, and that's okay. But if you say, I'm not allowing this into my bubble anymore, trust yourself and trust that instinct, and don't let that come into your bubble. Because when you do, it creates a lack of trust with anybody else you're relating to. So what I mean by that is if you say, and we see it a lot with our kids when our kids were littler, if you touch that again, I'm going to blister your behind, or whatever you said. You're going to go to timeout. You're going to do whatever. And so when you don't, good morning, Angel, when you don't do that, and you let them push that limit, that is creating a lack of trust. Good morning, Sophia. That is creating that lack of trust in your bubble because you've set that boundary If you do that again, especially when you're talking to your kids, we did it when they were little. If you touch that, I'm going to pop your leg, or I'm going to spank your hand, or I'm going to put you in timeout, or I'm going to do whatever. You continue this behavior, you're going to go to your room. And we don't follow through, then our kids don't trust what we say. Right? You can't make other people do. So if you say to your veteran, if you talk to me like this again, I'm not listening to it. You can't tell them they're not going to talk to you that way because that's in their control. But you can say, I'm not listening to that. And you can walk out of the room. What happens when you do that is you start forming boundaries that they know they can no longer push. And it's that way with anything. It's that way if you're at work and you have a boss and your boss says, I need you to stay late. And you're like, I can't keep staying late. But then every time there's an emergency that comes up, you're the one who stays late. He has no trust that you mean what you say because you keep pushing that boundary. So when you create that boundary, and it's in your bubble, and it may be close in the beginning, it may be that you don't want your veteran to yell, or you don't want your veteran to do whatever, your one thing, because I always encourage you to make the list and pick your priority. And this behavior is not behavior, but I'm not going to tolerate this in my bubble anymore. You have to stand firm on that every single time. You can't bend on that, because if you do, there's no trust there. They don't trust that if you say, I'm not doing this any longer, and you give in and give in and give in, there's no trust, there's no belief, and there's that lack of trust, and everything is gone. Okay? And it happens with everything. So you have to trust yourself. If this is going to be one of your absolute cannot live with behaviors that you're going to make that list of, and you say, I'm not living with this in my life anymore, regardless of what it is, you have to trust yourself and hold firm on that one single boundary. Are they going to push against it? Absolutely. Are your kids going to try you every time you tell them no? Absolutely. But I promise you, once your kids learn that they're not going to get away with it, they're going to stop that behavior. Once your veteran learns that they can't keep doing this because you're not going to participate, that's going to go somewhere else. Once your boss learns that when you mean you're getting off time, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is, and you're not staying late anymore, you're not staying late anymore. That becomes that trust, and you have to build it within yourself first. We talk about relationships and how we want our veteran to change, and we're tired of this and we're tired of that. A lot of it, I'm not saying any of the things that everybody is complaining about are not valid complaints. They are. But you can't expect somebody else to do something you're not going to do. So that lack of trust, we have to establish first in our bubble, in our boundary. When you do that, you're going to see less resistance over time. Is it a long process? Absolutely. Is it something that takes a lot of time? Absolutely. And then it falls into communication. It's got to be clear and it's got to be concise. You can't go to your kid when they're reaching for the candy bar at the checkout aisle, which I still think is like the worst thing anybody ever did, was put the candy bars at the checkout aisle. One, your kids create havoc, and then as you get older, you are standing there in anxiety trying to decide what you want. And then inevitably the candy bar I want is not in my checkout aisle, and that just makes me even madder. But you can't tell your kid if they're reaching for a Snickers bar, you can't have that Snickers bar. And then they reach for the Reese's, and you smack the hand because they're reaching for the Reese's because you weren't clear. If you tell them you are not getting any of this, now it's clear. But if you tell them you're not getting that Snickers bar and they reach for the Reese's, you weren't clear in that. Does that make, it'll make sense when you think about it. So when you have that list that you're giving one thing at a time to your veteran, you must do this. I'm not going to participate in this. And you are very clear. You can't just say, I'm not going to deal with you yelling. I mean, come on, we all yell. I'm a yeller. That's just in my nature. I mean, so he runs over his foot with like the car tire. If he yells, that's acceptable, right? If he's in the shower and you pour a bucket of ice water over him and he screams, that's acceptable. But you got to be clear. When you're angry, you're not gonna yell at me. I'm not listening to it. You're not gonna yell. You can yell till hell freezes over. But when you're angry and you're yelling, I'm not listening to it and I'm walking out of the room. Not walking out of the relationship, walking out of the room. And you've got to be clear on that communication. We don't realize people don't read our minds. I may know that I want a pencil. Okay, I'm one of these weird people who only write in blue ink. And I try very hard not to have black ink pens in our house. But when I say to somebody, hey, hand me a pen, and they hand me a black ink pen, I can't get mad at them and say, oh, well, you gave me the black ink pen, right? I can't do that because they handed me a pen. If I say, hey, will you hand me that blue pen? Guess what? If they hand me a red one, I can be like, but I told you blue. So you have to be clear in what you're saying, right? And the same is true, just like Sue said. I do it all the time. I'm like, don't you yell at me. And he's like, you yell at me all the time. So you can't do what you're asking them not to do. It'd be like being again to the checkout bar with your kids. You can't say, you're not getting that Snickers bar, and you taking a Snickers bar and buying it for yourself and eating it on the way out to the car. Okay, it doesn't work both ways. So whatever your thing is, it's got to be the same and consistent across the board. It doesn't work without that. And that is what happens in a toxic relationship. We do this in our toxic relationships. It's never good. A toxic relationship is where it's all take and there's no giving. Now this is going to be something that we're all going to look back on and say, but we give and we give and we give and we give and we give, okay? We give and they don't give back. I hear it. I understand it. But what I'm going to ask you this, and this is going to be a hard question to answer and a reality check and a wake up and look in the mirror check because I do it all the time, okay? How much of what we are giving do they ask for, and how much of what we give do we just give? Okay, that's a real reality check there. I am a fixer by nature. That's what I am. So I give, even though you don't ask for it, I may give. And so then it becomes very one-sided. I give because that's who I am. I'm not good at asking for what I want. I expect Carl to read my mind. He doesn't. Okay? He doesn't read my mind. So if I am constantly giving, not because he asked for it, but because that's in my nature, of course it's going to swing the balance. Of course it's going to swing that balance. So you have to ask for what you need and be specific. You can't go with the laundry list yo long. You have to be specific in what you're asking for. It is important that you do that, and it's that way in your bubble. If you feel like you are overwhelmed in your personal space, that relationship you have to develop with yourself, and all you feel is that you're giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, stop giving and give when people ask. That's on you. Hard thing for me to swallow. I'm a giver. I do it all the time. I have always done that. And it's just who I am by nature. And then when I feel overwhelmed, I don't understand why I feel overwhelmed. And I feel overwhelmed because I give and it hits that balance so that like I'm giving is way up here and what I'm getting back is way down here. But nobody asked me to give up here. They didn't ask me to give it to you at this level. Right? They didn't ask for this give. So when it comes to the take, it's down here because I didn't ask for it back. So be careful in that give and take. A toxic relationship is an unbalanced give and take. It is that way with yourself. If you don't ask for something to come into your life, and you don't ask that it becomes part of your life, or ask for it to come in your bubble, then you're never going to get it because not everybody is a giver by nature. A lot of people don't give because they don't know what you want or what you need. So just remember that in your relationship with yourself, you control what you give. You control what you give. I was this person who believed, and it came from my past baggage. Remember, we all have baggage. It came from my past baggage that I always believed I had to cook this big, extravagant meal, and that's what I had to do. And I got really busy yesterday working on Project Your Voice, and I was super busy, and I had planned on cooking chicken parm for dinner. And Carl looked at me and he said, honey, why don't we have chicken parm tomorrow? I'm okay with a sandwich. I'm like, yes. But typically, I would have said, it's okay, I'll just cook chicken parm because I know that. No, he didn't ask for that. He wanted dinner. A sandwich was fine with him. He made tuna. Okay? It was okay with him. So don't get in your mind that you have to give something people don't ask for. That flips the balance wrong. And that is your balance. And we do it all the time and we don't realize it. And then we're overwhelmed. The next big sign of a toxic relationship is mutual avoidance. That elephant in the room thing that we all have going on? Or old people will remember it, young people may not, is like the life cereal. Let's get Mikey, he'll do it, he eats everything. I'm not going to eat it, are you going to eat it? I'm not going to eat it, are you going to eat it? Remember the Mikey commercial? Right? And that went on. But if you mutually avoid the problem, I hear, I don't want to say anything because I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. He is a keeper. As much as he's becoming my Carl like yours is my Richard. I'm keeping him. It's amazing. But, we go through this avoidance and it's like this elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And we all walk around on these eggshells because God knows we have something important that we need to say, but we don't want to say it because it might trigger them. And then if it triggers them, we're back to this. Carl's answer is this. I'm either going to get mad. I'm not going to get mad. Okay? I'm either mad or I'm not going to get mad or I'm going to accept it. Okay? So when somebody tells you something, an elephant in the room, you're either going to get mad, you're not going to get mad, you're going to accept it and work on it. That's the same thing he says is going to happen. With the PTSD, it's the same thing that's going to happen. Walking on eggshells doesn't make it better because what it does, and Steve's right, resentment builds up, and when resentment builds up, you can't talk because now you're angry. Okay, so mutual avoidance creates a problem. And we know in our little realm, our bubble, that we have something we need to discuss, but we keep it in and we avoid it. And they're not bringing it up. I mean, I don't care who it is. People don't always bring things up. So now this thing that needs to be discussed stays in our bubble and becomes like this big, ugly zit that somebody on Dr. Pimple Popper needs to come and fix. And I don't know about you, but I like my bubble smooth. I don't want there to be big zits sitting up in my bubble. So you have to make sure that the avoidance becomes an issue. Walking on eggshells, I hear it all the time. I think everybody has done it. I did it. I did it. I don't walk on eggshells with him anymore. I tell him what's bothering me, but I don't tell him in the manner I used to. I communicate better most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. I don't walk on those eggshells. And one of the things Carl does to me all the time is he'll say, I'm sorry I screwed up. I'm like, what did you screw up? Well, I didn't have your coffee ready. Like, having my coffee ready is screwing up? No, it's not. I'm a big girl and I can get my own coffee. But from his past relationship, he feels like everything he does is a mistake. So that's one of the biggest arguments we have now is, will you stop saying you're sorry? Stop apologizing. Stop thinking that you failed. You didn't fail. You don't fail me. But when we get into this mutual avoidance, he would walk around with this, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to fail, I didn't mean to fail. Well, instead of me saying, what the heck are you talking about, right? It was this coming out all the time. And then I kind of expected this apology all the time, which was really dumb on my part. And finally I just sit back and said, what the heck are you apologizing for? Probably didn't use heck, I probably used hell, but what are you apologizing for? What did you fail at? You didn't fail, okay? It isn't like you committed murder. It isn't like, I mean, so the darn coffee wasn't done, so we got talking and dinner got burned, so whatever. You know, there's a few things I have to have in my life. I gotta have clean drawers when I go to the thing. So as long as the drawers are clean, I don't care where they're sitting. That matters to me, clean drawers. I don't care what we eat. You know, I go back in and I think I put this in one of the posts I did about give them too many options. You say, oh, I want chicken for dinner, and then they're thinking about, do you want fried chicken? Do you want broiled chicken? Do you want roasted chicken? Do you want grilled chicken? Do you want chicken cordon bleu? Do you want chicken noodle soup? I mean, they're thinking about all these things with chicken, right? I don't think that way. I'm like, oh, you want chicken for dinner? Great. And if I fry the chicken and it gets a little burned along the way, I scrape the burned off, and by God, we now have blackened chicken. And it's okay. But for him, if he fixes fried chicken, and I was thinking we were having baked chicken, and I'm like, oh, well, I thought we were having baked chicken and rice. He said, I'm sorry, I screwed up. That's a communication thing. Now that's that thing that we allow, that mutual avoidance. We're avoiding the freaking chicken. I don't care what kind of chicken it is. Let's just eat it. But don't walk on the eggshells, because when you do, it creates problems. When I said to him, well, I thought we were having baked chicken with rice, and he's like, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I'm like, no, we didn't screw up. It's communication at that point. We didn't screw up. It was just I was thinking, because we talked about earlier, we were having chicken and rice, or it'll be the same way, the opposite way. Don't walk on eggshells like you're going to piss them off all the time, because they're either going to get mad, not get mad, deal with it, or not deal with it, and that is their choice. But when you walk on eggshells and you don't talk about things, you create the sense of not trust. So get the whole picture here. You're killing me. I love you, Nakia. She's thinking like Chicken Espresso, the golden chicken. I love you. I love you. Because Nakia would always have blackened chicken. And by the way, happy birthday. She would always have blackened chicken if it was her doing it. But those are the pitfalls we fall into in a toxic relationship. And the problem with a toxic relationship is how much of that toxic relationship are we creating by avoiding issues and by not standing firm and having a good relationship with ourselves. You cannot fix people. You can fix you. And when you fix you and you become strong and you become healthy and you learn to communicate and you learn all these things, all those things will pass off onto other people and your relationships will be stronger. Your healthy, happy, loving, lasting relationship starts with you. If your relationship is toxic, I assure you there is something you are doing in that relationship that's toxic. I lived in a 28-year toxic relationship, and do you know why that relationship was toxic? That relationship was toxic because I allowed it to become toxic. Because I didn't create boundaries, because I didn't create a bubble, because I didn't stand firm. Yes, was he a jerk? Absolutely. Yes, was he a narcissist? Absolutely. But you know what? When he said, hey, do something for me, you know what my answer was? Okay, I'll do it right now. I didn't set boundaries. So who created the toxic? Both of us did. But I was guilty because I didn't create that boundary. Because I didn't protect myself first. And you're gonna have a toxic relationship if you don't fix what's in you first. And I know that's going to sound like I get it. I understand how it's got to sound. It's got to sound like, here I am, I'm the one doing everything wrong. No, you're not. But if you don't take care of you, and you're not good for you, in the words of Carl, you're not good for anybody else. We have to be good for us first. It's just the way it is. Be on the airplane, you know, when the stewardess is there and she's like, this plane is equipped with 4 exits, 2 here and there. They do the whole little thing. And in the event of a decrease in cabin pressure, the mask is going to fall down. Please extend the mask fully, pull against it, place it on your own face before you help somebody else. They hear it, right? I mean, it's even printed on the little placards in the airplane. So print your little placard in your head. You can't do anything if you're not good first. It goes back to what we learned in basic EMS and what we learned as firefighters. There's a hazmat spill and there's acid spilled all over the road and there's a guy who's sitting in the acid, okay? But if I go to him, what's going to happen? Both of us are now getting burned up with the acid. You can't put yourself in danger if you don't take care of yourself first. First rules we learned in EMS was you, your safety, your partner's safety, and then the patient. Your safety, your partner's safety, and then the patient. Take that into your relationship. You're being good for you first, then you worry about how you're coming across to your partner, and then everybody else falls in place. That's the way it works. It is that way in anything that you learn. Any safety meeting, flying on an airplane, it tells you that. It tells you that. I mean, let's get real. When I was little, I'm really not proud of this moment, but okay. My daddy told me, absolutely do not go on the lake. The lake had frozen and had defrozen through the summer, and it had gotten cold again, or through the spring, and it had gotten cold again, and it refroze, but it wasn't 5 inches thick like it usually is. It was really thin, and there were places that were still thick. And my dad told me, I was in first grade, which I still blame my parents for, because they never should let a first grader go out by herself a mile away from the house. But we lived in the middle of nowhere, and it was acceptable then. But I went out on the lake, and I fell through. My friend Aaron was with me. All right? And because we had been taught this so long about it, Erin didn't run out onto the lake to help me. She got me out. She ended up laying a bike across the thing and got me out and helped me get out. But had Erin just ran to me, both of us would have been in the lake, and both of us probably would have froze to death. But you can't do that. That's why we get in these mess. You fix you first. Fix you first. When you fix you first, everything else will fall into place. Everything else will start to fall into place. It's the way it works. It's one of the hardest things we ever deal with, because as little kids we're taught to share, and we think that share means give people what they want. It doesn't. It can still be your toy, your doll, and when you take it out to play with it, if you're going to take it out amongst the neighborhood, now you must share it. But you got to get you straight first, or nothing else works. It's just the way it is. And that was probably the hardest thing I had to learn. The hardest thing I had to learn was that. Be good for me first. Nothing else matters. It will all come into play. But if I'm the one who runs into the acid, now I'm the problem. I'm the one who runs into the contaminant because my patient's there. Now I become part of the problem, not part of the solution. You don't want to be part of the problem. If you want your relationship to be loving and healthy and strong and growing, don't be part of the problem. If you want your veteran to respect you, respect your veteran, but respect yourself first. If you want your veteran to be honest with you, be honest with yourself and what your boundaries are first, and then be honest with them. Don't walk on eggshells, because when you walk on eggshells and you don't talk about the elephant in the room, you are being deceitful and the trust goes away. Don't be part of the problem. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever learn. It's the hardest thing I ever had to learn. It's important that we go forward in a positive manner, but take care of yourself first. Take care of yourself first. You gotta do that to move forward into a healthy relationship. You have to do that to move forward. And don't expect because you change, they're going to change to follow. It will happen when you learn to take care of yourself and learn to communicate effectively what you will and will not allow in your boundary and in your bubble. When you learn to do that, they will start to change, because they're going to meet that resentment, that resistance. They're going to meet that, and they're going to know they can't push in that space. And that's okay. And things will change. It is a long process. It's not the easiest process, but it is a process that is well worth it. And I learn every single day about my space and myself. I am not perfect. I'm just me. And anybody who knows me knows I am not perfect. So that is today's topic. We're going to talk more on toxic relationships tomorrow. And we should probably come pretty close to winding it up, and then learn how to put all of this together. What a good relationship works, what is good, and what is healthy that we've already talked about. What a healthy relationship looks like. Now we know what the toxic side looks like, and later on this week and the rest of the month, we're going to talk about how to put it all together. And when we put it all together, you're going to see a change in your life that you never dreamed possible. And when we fail at keeping our boundaries, it's okay. Get back up and put your boundary back. Get back up and put your boundary back. It's important that you do that. And remember, anything you do takes 21 days to become a habit. Anything you do takes 21 days to become a habit. So that's where we are. Lots going on, like I said. It is imperative, y'all, please share this. Any veteran you know, any veteran group you know, any way to get this information out. VA. What's the experience been with the VA? Everybody says, we need help, or mine's good, or it's this, and we feel like it's failing this. If you don't submit the letters, you're part of the problem. We have that stage. We have that platform. Leah's on here. She's been helping us get this together. We have it. But if you don't submit it, you're part of the problem. So if we need to get some issues in the VA straight, we're going to have that voice. We've got to have the data. Your name will not be on it. It will remain confidential. And if you've already sent one in the past, when I asked initially, in the first time I did it, please submit another one to vastories@lovingmyveteran.com. Those are going directly to the research people. So the stuff we already have, so we keep the data correct. The stuff we already have was enough to get us that platform. But if you've got stories and you've already submitted them one time, the first time, please make sure you resubmit them to vastories@lovingmyveteran.com. It's how we're going to keep the integrity of the data. So it is very important. Follow us again on, it is projectyourvoice.org. Get that out there. If you're active with a VFW or whatever, please get with me and we can get that information to them. The more people who know, the better the data is going to be and the better the outcome is coming out for our veterans. Michelle and I cut podcast number 2 this week. So we're going to do one more and they will start going live. I'm getting all these podcast alerts coming in. So we are close to being able to present the podcasts live. They'll be an hour once a week. Release dates will be soon to follow. If you've got a story you want to share or something that you want to talk about or a topic, email us. lovingmyveteran@gmail.com. Send us a message. We'll be happy to talk about that. I know that we are going to do TBI and PTSD. And we're going to do a whole thing on medications and treatments. Those are all coming up in future episodes. But if you've got something specific, please email us. I'm running late, as I always do. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are Loving My Veteran. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for reaching out. And we love your input and we value you as part of our family. Have a great day. Bye.